Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Cowboy Bebop Season 1 Episode 1. It's called Cowboy Gospel. So, we'll start spoiler free because Episode 1. I almost said full spoilers because I almost always say that when I do a first episode. This is a Netflix adaptation of an anime series. The anime series that for some reason everyone always says to me, oh, it's the anime that'll change your mind about anime. Still haven't seen it.
I think they say that because it, by and large, doesn't have a lot of the anime tropes that you tend to dislike about anime.
Interesting. Whereas Connor has seen it. Connor's here. He insisted in being here for the two pilots that we're recording today. So here we are.
Mainly because I knew for a fact with both of them, Pete's going to hate both of them. So there's no chance that we're going to run into scheduling issues trying to get in the rest of the series. So I may as well come and join in the fun while I had a day off.
I may surprise you. You don't know this. Of course, it's worth mentioning this is a priority review because the patrons voted it as such in the pilot scheme that we have at the $10 tier on Patreon. So, and they knew what they were doing, like making me watch this.
Everyone knew what they were doing. Yeah.
This is not trying to you'll see the light. You'll be surprised.
I like
really
the idea
it.
though that even if they weren't, you wouldn't have gone, oh, go on then. I'll do the first episode.
I may not have. I don't know. I mean, it's
hatred of anime runs that deep.
It does. I hate anime. F it. Seriously. So it's about bounty hunters. We're in the future. It's in space. We got bounty hunters. John Cho plays the lead, Mr. Cowboy Bebop himself, and I know that's not his name. I'm cracking a joke.
I should hope so.
And then his second in command is the dude from the Deuce and Quarry. He's there.
Second in command's a weird way of putting it, but sure.
Partner, whatever. I mean,
yeah, partner, and also it's his ship.
Is it his ship? Okay, I never caught that.
He makes a point of saying that in the episode.
And then there's kind of the third person who's tacked on by the end is a sort of another bounty hunter, a woman who kind of joins the party. The streams cross, as it were. They've got sort of parallel targets that kind of intertwine, and given the fact that she's in the opening credit sequence as much as they are, I suspect she's going to remain a part of the crew, even though they're very much against each other right now.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say that, yes, Faye Valentine is part of the crew.
Yes. See, Connor knows all the names.
I do know all the names.
That's very strange.
It's not that strange. It's a very big show. People know these names.
Yes. The plot of the first episode is just pretty straightforward. We get them collecting a bounty with an action sequence to show us what their day-to-day is, and then it's like, okay, they're down in their dumps, they don't have enough money to run the ship, and they're going off to hopefully get this other bounty, and we're introduced to kind of who this, bounty of the week is, and possible villains that they might connect to. And bit of a backstory kind of starting to be teased with our main character and some stuff like that. Honestly, the first thing that I would like to ask and point out is why the saxophone from the Lethal Weapon soundtrack is used so heavily in this.
I mean, there's a lot of jazz and saxophone in this in general.
But there's specifically the we're going for the emotional saxophone while slow motion's happening. It's Lethal Weapon. It's very Lethal Weapon, what it's doing.
There was a lot of that in the original show. I think part of that is the bill for what the music was supposed to be was generally spy action movies. There's a lot of Bond in there, but jazz. That was kind of the brief that they were given. So I suppose that kind of fits in with that already.
But why were they given that brief, though? That's the question.
Why were they given that particular brief?
Yes, I'm arguing the creative choice here, not that the musicians went up rogue and just did something.
The creative choice to have jazz.
Yes.
In the show named after a style of jazz.
I didn't know that.
Bebop is a form of jazz.
No, it's Bebop and Rocksteady. They're from the Ninja Turtles, okay? That's Bebop.
That is also a bebop, yes.
Which
I can't argue with that fundamental fact. That is verifiably true.
and if the creators of the show had any taste, then that's who they named Bebop after was Bebop from Bebop and Rocksteady from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Thank you very much. And do you know why? Because jazz sucks. That's why.
Right, this review's over.
So honestly, like I didn't like hate this show. Let me just like I'm playing it up a little bit because everyone's expecting me to despise it. I think it's a little bit soulless. I feel the Netflix pacing. I felt like the plot in this episode felt like it was about twice as long as it probably needed to be.
Do you know why? Because that opening sequence aside, all the stuff on the main planet in this episode, that's the opening episode of the original show. Which was 20 minutes. So that is exactly why it feels like it's stretched out a little bit too long. Now, yes, they padded it out with extra stuff like that opening 10 or 15 minutes, whatever that is, and some other little bits here or there. But for the vast part, this is a adaptation of that first episode.
So I felt that, and that just kind of makes it in line with a lot of Netflix shows, unfortunately, where I feel that pacing. In terms of stuff feeling slow, though, this is like less a pacing thing and more of a choreography / action direction thing. But there was a lot of stuff in the action sequences that I felt looked kind of bad because it felt like the speed that we're moving was more rehearsal speed than actual scene speed. There's one particular note. There's later on the episode. There's a moment where John Cho is like sliding and shooting guns. He's like sliding across. I don't know if it's like a car or something, but he's sliding across something and he's shooting these guns. But the speed of which he's sliding feels so slow that it looked kind of unnatural. Like they almost wanted to give the impression he was gliding or something, but the pacing felt unnatural and off to me. And there was a lot of that in the action sequence where it felt like it was going for style and trying to feel cool, but I felt like they were like everything was moving at like a half speed. Like they were stopping to pose, or there was like all these moments in between the punches and kicks, or
go on your Netflix and up the speed to like 1.5 times for the action sequences is what you're saying.
I mean, that shouldn't be a user concern, but yes, that could. I
believe it is an option, not on the TV apps, but I think it is on your mobile and browser apps. So
I'm trying to get the objective things that I noticed were just things that I think are objectively poor, and that's one of them. The action scenes are trying very hard to be cool. I don't think they actually are cool though.
That's fair.
So I would say that. I would say the pacing is very lackadaisical. And I think, and this is maybe veering into more subjective territory, but I do think a lot of things in this are really cheesy.
It is cheesy. But I wouldn't say that's a bad thing.
I was rolling my eyes.
I think that is very subjective because I think it's fine if you don't like it because it's cheesy, but I think it's intentionally cheesy. I don't think it's a mistake that it's like that.
That's fair. I did say I was veering into subjective territory. I would argue that the main villain, who we don't really meet till the end of the episode, I would say that his introduction is just plain cheesy bad. Intentional or otherwise, this guy is laughable with the long silver hair. Like Sephiroth wants his wig back.
Anime, yes. And sometimes things, especially from anime or games, don't translate amazingly.
No, the way he sort of got his head tilted, he's just sort of schooling with the silver hair like the entire time, and everyone's scared of him. I'm just like, this is cheesy shit. Whereas the more Lethal Weapon-y stuff, and I like Lethal Weapon, I'm not dissing Lethal Weapon, but John Cho has like flashbacks to like a lost love like multiple times, and there's like a slow motion shot of a rose falling as the saxophone plays, and every time it cut to that, I just sort of was like, I get it. I get it. Move on.
That's fair. I will say this was nowhere near as bad as I was expecting it to be. But I was always very cautious anyway, because, I mean, when has there ever been a good live action adaptation of an anime?
When's there ever been a good anime? I mean, that's a fair question as well, I think.
It's not a fair question. You take that back. But yeah, so I wasn't really expecting the best show ever already. And then some of the early reviews hit and they were less than kind. So I was kind of expecting a train wreck. And I had a lot more fun with this than I thought I would. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's perfect, but I'm probably going to watch the rest. I did enjoy it. Even the things that I know are bad, like the stuff with the villain at the end, I think it is cheesy bad, but it's still enough that I'm kind of getting enjoyment out of it.
I mean, I think the reviews, and I mean, when I say the reviews, the Rotten Tomatoes scores. What I really mean is, like, I think the Rotten Tomatoes score seems pretty fair after watching it, and because it's this weird thing where I'm like, if everyone agrees that it's just really mediocre, that it should have a really rotten score, technically, right? It's because the Rotten Tomatoes score does not equate to a rating out of 10. That's not what
true, because they're rotten. If they score something as rotten, it's below like 70% or something, isn't it?
Below 60.
It's over 6. Okay, yeah. So it's not like it doesn't have to be objectively bad to be rotten. Still.
Yeah, just really mediocre, and I think that kind of sums up how it just feels overall. Is really mediocre. And all the things that I theoretically should like because of my love of science fiction, it's all stuff I've seen done better elsewhere. Like none of it's
that's fair,
but particularly exciting. Okay, they're bounty hunters. They're going from based somewhat in reality locations. They mentioned Ganymede at one point. Like there's like a new Tijuana, but it's it's built on an asteroid or Mars. Yeah,
it's all more or less our solar system.
Yeah, but with extra things added and whatnot, and because it's almost like it's treated like a twist almost at the start, where you have this big action sequence in a casino, and it's not until someone blows a hole in the wall that it's sort of revealed that we're in space. It's kind of presented as if, oh, we're just in a casino somewhere on Earth, and then no, wait, we're in space, and we get that kind of that big reveal. So just thoroughly mediocre.
That's fair. I will say I'm glad the show exists for one reason and one reason only. Like, if nothing else, there is new Yoko Kanno jazz music in the world, and therefore this show gave me that, so I like it.
The only real thing I'm happy for is there's at least a few actors in this that I'm happy I've got a job. I mean, that's basically the extent of where I feel. Mustafa Shakir, who plays the second dude with a robot arm. Jet. There you go. Him. He
also his voice. He's not like putting on a voice or anything like that, but it's his inflections are like dead on. Like it's not quite like it's not like he's doing an impression, but just he completely captures the character from the original with the inflections that make it almost scarily accurate.
Elena Satine, who was on Twin Peaks, and she was in some episode of Tour Timeless. Like, I like her, so she's in this. You barely see her in this first episode, but she is in there. So yeah, there's cast members. I think part of it is, and this is probably the anime origin of this, is that it kind of felt like a much more like TV directed Scott Pilgrim to me. A lot of the tone and the style that it was kind of going for. And I love Edgar Wright, but I'm not that fond of Scott Pilgrim. And it's not really because of his choices as a director, it's because the source material is just fundamentally a tone and an attitude that just annoys me. And I felt some of that in this. Like, I was feeling some of that tone and attitude.
On the flip side, Scott Pilgrim is one of my top 5 movies of all time. So, yeah. This, even when it's not being good, this works for me.
You're such a sniveling little shit, aren't you?
I know. This is not news.
Scott Pilgrim in your top 5? Do you even like Back to the Future that much?
Scott Pilgrim's way better than Back to the Future. It's not even close.
You're right that it's not close, but
Back to the Future, it's fine. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, hipster trash is what Scott Pilgrim is. Thank you very much.
Perfection on film.
Hipster trash. This is like poorer directed hipster trash.
Yeah, this is no Scott Pilgrim.
This is like Scott Pilgrim, but they forgot to distribute the cocaine before filming and editing.
That would have upped your pace a bit, I can guarantee it.
um, yeah, I guess that's the spoiler. To be honest, though, do I have any spoiler thoughts? Do I care about the plot of this episode to talk about spoilers?
I don't think there is much plot in this episode to spoil. I don't mean that in a bad way. A lot of episodes ones are kind of like this, right? Where it's the premise of the show for the most part. I also just some differences, not even differences from the anime, but more just, they've shifted some stuff around, like having Faye introduced in this episode as opposed to, a few episodes later.
They wanted to make it feel more like the main cast.
They do, and also this is a 10-episode season, whereas that show was, like, I think, 26 episodes.
Yeah.
So you've got stuff like that.
So you're telling me there's 2.5 seasons worth? If they're going to adapt it at the pace that they're currently going at, they've got 2.5 seasons.
This thing, I don't know how far they get in terms of, because a lot of that season doesn't have to do with the main plot, like the stuff that we're teasing, the backstory of the villain. That's there intermittently. It's off and on, but it's very traditional TV in that sense that it's a handful of episodes over the course of the season. Whereas
I guess once you watch,
it is villain of the week, so to speak.
I guess once you watch episode 2, you'll be able to tell if they're going to be doing just cases of the week for a few episodes and then tease the main plot again in episode 4 or 5, and you can maybe predict that. But
the original has 26 episodes and a movie that's set in the middle of the show, so you could kind of throw that in as well if you wanted to adapt that at some point. But then also they've got a lot of free reign. They don't have to just adapt one-to-one directly. They can make their own plots. Like I think they kind of have to stick to the established beats with some of the character stuff and the ending of the show, because it is a very finite show. It has an ending, right? It is one season. It is those 26 episodes. It ends at a certain point. I think they probably need to stick with that and have an end game in mind as to when they want to reach that. But they can do Bounty of the Week, whatever they want. They can come up with all sorts of episodes with those characters and just go on adventures. That's very, very much in the spirit of the show, I would say.
They're probably aiming for 3 seasons. It seems to be the Netflix number.
That is Netflix's magic number, and that's not terrible.
Yeah, I have no interest in watching any of these seasons though. I'm good. I've had my fill, and
I saw some little clips from further ahead that I'm like, okay, I need to get to this at least. And you would hate it. Don't get me wrong, looks terrible, but also I need to see it for myself. And I think the way they marketed some of it was a bit weird, where they did, like, in the last week or two before release, they were doing these comparison shots of this is the moment from the anime versus the moment in the live action, and they were trying to recreate these shots as close to one-to-one as they could in live action, and I don't think that flatters them. I think they were not that they were shot badly or that they looked inherently bad. I just think the moments that they were choosing to highlight were things that looked better in animation because of what they were doing. There were things that don't replicate that well, and I thought it was really weird that they chose to highlight that.
That kind of connects to what I was talking about in the action scenes. It feels like there's moments where they want to create the still image almost of the animation of a pose, but it just looks like the pacing's awful in live action. It's something superhero movies have to an extent had to deal with a little bit, because sometimes it looks, because if you go back and watch X-Men Origins Wolverine, there's a moment where Wolverine just sort of does his pose with his claws out in the middle of a fight, and it's like,
because I was talking about this with a friend last week, this campaign, the marketing campaign, and the moment I compared it to was from Avengers, I think it was Age of Ultron, near the start, where it has the lineup shot, and it doesn't quite freeze frame on them, but it has that side shot, and it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. You're there because, hey, look, this looks like it's a panel from a comic, and that's great, but I don't need that in a movie. And it's the same here, where I understand the spirit that you're taking this from is well intentioned, but I would rather you play to the strengths of your medium.
Yeah, I mean that one thing if they were trying that a lot. I think the Age of Ultron shot you're talking about, I think, was fine because it was the end of the opening scene to kind of
yeah. I'm not picking on that movie. I'm not even that moment. It's just that was the first one that came to mind, as a lot of superhero movies in general kind of pull off those moments. You just pulled one out of the top of your head as well. I think I'm kind of just sick of all of them doing it. and that goes here as well. I think it's a very fair complaint.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're here to talk about this because you actually have some shit to say. Because honestly, the actual plot of the episode, which is they're hunting this guy who's sort of like running away with the love of his life, who happens to be the daughter of some powerful rich dude who wants her back. So they've got a bounty on the guy because the guy, when they went into a diner on New Tijuana, he shot up a drug into his eye that gives him like sort of like rage strength, and he like takes out like a gang of thugs who are part of the syndicate who work for the main villain of the show. But that's just kind of a tease for the end of the episode and, you know, future things. But so they've got a bounty for him. The female lead, she has a bounty for the girlfriend, which is the daughter of the rich man, and that's kind of what the premise is they're looking for these two, and they're sort of tracking them down. They end up getting into each other's way. We have kind of this tragic ending for those characters where he does get shot, he does die, and she's running off. And the main thing here is that John Cho's character, he, like, when he speaks to her briefly earlier, they kind of have this like very unnatural conversation where he just kind of opens up about his love life to her. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of like a trope. And she assumes he's never been in love because of something he says about love, and he says, "No, I was once, but it was a dream. It was time to wake up." And she has this like sad ending where she chooses to like sort of go into a hail of gunfire and die because her love of her life's dead, and she's like, it's time to wake up because there's no point in living anymore. So it's kind of upsetting you in the cynical, jaded attitude that the main character has. Of course, though, the big ending, the hook, if you will, is that the love of his life is alive and is just with the bad guy. Possibly like with her either her mind wiped or like it almost felt like maybe she doesn't know she's like who he is anymore or something. Like I got a vibe. Maybe she's just evil and she just chose the bad guy. I mean, that's possible, but
yeah, I mean, I don't want to say anything on this because that is spoilers for people who are watching the show. So I'll let you speculate.
Yeah, there's the vibe I got was just like, oh, we can't tell her about him because it might trigger memories, and if it triggers memories, maybe whatever we did to her will wear off or something. I don't know. That was the vibe I was getting.
Definitely stuff we've seen in other shows and movies in the past.
Yeah. So, that's pretty much it. I think that's maybe the other damning thing is that I don't really have any particular scenes or plot points that I would even like to talk about that much. Nothing sticks out. It's very by the numbers in that sense.
There was a moment where it looked like they were being really ballsy and dark, right? And then it was like, oh no, never mind. It's just a swerve.
Oh yeah, because the woman's pregnant, but it turns out she's not pregnant. She's just smuggling all the drug in a fake belly.
Yeah, but it plays it for like maybe 10 seconds, like it wasn't, and I appreciate that it did play it that way, and it took the moment to let it sit before it revealed that it's fine.
Yeah, because the other thing about John Cho's past as well in this is that the syndicate recognize him, and he's supposed to be dead, and this is maybe hints as to why he's such a good fighter, because he used to be a part of this group. Maybe he was one of their best, and he betrayed the boss because he fell in love with whoever. So, like, I don't know, it's teasing at all this backstory stuff, and that's all fine, but like,
yeah, and I will say some of that backstory stuff, and when it comes around, which is what I assume will be the main plot of the show, is really good. And I'm looking forward to kind of just seeing, what they do with it. So yeah, I think if you did enjoy this episode enough that you didn't think it was terrible, maybe you thought it was a bit mediocre. Maybe if you're interested in that backstory stuff though, yeah, maybe stick with it a few more episodes because that stuff was really good in the original.
I'll definitely say there's nothing in this episode that makes it seem like it's going to be any different or interesting. Like it feels very typical in this.
That's fair. It's very much it's a Netflix show, which isn't the worst thing ever, but it's also not exciting anymore.
Yeah. Honestly, it's more of a negative now than it used to.
No, it is. It's definitely more on the negative side of it, but it's not like going it's a CBS show, right? Most of them are still perfectly watchable, just not that entertaining overall.
I mean, I've not watched a second episode of a Netflix show in quite some time. like There's not been a lot.
I'm sure I watched something recently.
You watched Midnight Mass, so you've watched that.
Oh, that was good. Yeah,
Right.
that was really good. I will vouch for that.
But maybe I'd like that. I don't know. I mean, it is Mike Flanagan. There's no reason to think I wouldn't. I do have to watch the first episode of Squid Game because that was another Patreon thing. And that's something, and it's maybe very good. I've heard good things.
Yeah,
but
I've been meaning to get to soon as well.
But there was a time just a few years ago where it was like a new Netflix show was kind of an event, and they were knocking out like interesting show after interesting show.
It was like every month we were guaranteed at least one good Netflix show.
And now, like, nothing is less exciting to me than a Netflix original. So it's just where we are with it for whatever reasons. It's a shame. But hey ho, that is episode 1 of Cowboy Bebop. Thoroughly mediocre.
But more jazz, so it's all good.
I wouldn't say it's the worst thing ever. But it's not really good either. It's just yeah. Yeah, I have no passion. I have nothing to like. I've got to yell about. I made fun of jazz a little bit, but I mean, I've got nothing to yell about.
Joe, I will say it's shockingly inoffensive for you. I thought you were gonna despise this, before it came out, judging by the trailers, because the trailers seem to play up the stylish anime side of it a bit more. And then I watched it, I'm like, yeah, I don't think you'll like it, but I didn't see much in there for you to really hate either.
Yeah, it was more boring than anything, to be honest, which is arguably more damning.
I suspect you might hate the other show we're reviewing today more than this, to be honest.
Well, you'll find out in a minute, won't you? So let us know what you thought of the first episode of Cowboy Bebop, or indeed if you've watched more of the show, by all means. I wouldn't. Make sure you warn if you want to have spoilers for other people who haven't watched past episode 1 yet, who might want to. But I mean, I don't care about spoilers for this show, but other people may. So be considerate of the other commenters. Let us know what you think of the show in there. You can also like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. All those things do help on YouTube. And of course, you can support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. Catch us on Twitter as well at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?